Hello, everyone. Welcome to As Told by Kole. My name is Nicole Watson, and I specialize in teaching, inspiring, and empowering millennials and Gen Zers to overcome destructive thinking by handing them the tools they can use to construct the life of their dreams. I podcast on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays about all things mental health, current events, success stories, and more. Be sure to visit my website, NicoleWatson.com. That's NakoleWatson.com when you finish listening today if you want to learn more and connect with me. Now, let's get into today's episode. Hey, I hope you're having an amazing day today. I'm going to get right into it. So, last night I was doing some research about the topic that I'm going to speak about today, and I came across a huge scandal that's going on in the church community, and I'm not going to get into it because that's not what my podcast is about, but I was already feeling kind of fearful about some things, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I just knew that I was feeling a little fearful. But now that I've studied and I've, looked at what's going on currently, I completely understand where this fear is coming from. So I'm going to get into that. But I teach a masterclass called I Love God, But I Hate My Life. And I talk about how everything we hate about our lives can be traced back to a fear. And I was sure to tell you all about the class at the end, but what it got me thinking about was that I fear being great. And here's why. So one of my favorite scriptures in the world is Matthew 23. And I used to give huge disclaimers when I got ready to quote scriptures, but this is who I am. And so I'm not going to keep disclaiming and apologizing for the things that have shaped me and made me into who I am today. So having said that, I'm going to read this scripture to you and you're going to see why this is such a thing for me today and in this day and age and time. So Matthew 23 says, "Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, 'The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the law of Moses. So practice and obey what they tell you, but don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they teach.'" And I want to take a moment to acknowledge and hold space for anyone who has been abused by spiritual leaders who do not practice what they preach, because it's a very unnerving feeling to feel like you have to question the very existence of God, the very truth of who God is, because you don't understand how someone could worship and pray so much and then live the total opposite of what they're presenting. And that's a real thing. It's a real problem. It's a real situation that a lot of people, including myself, have gone through. So just know that if this is your story, you're seen and you're safe here. So let's hop back into the scripture. So verse 4 says, "They crush people with unbearable religious demands and never lift a finger to ease the burden. Everything they do is for show. On their arms, they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear robes with extra long tassels. And they love to sit at the head table at banquets and in the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi." So yeah, I didn't make this up. This is in the book. So don't come for me. I didn't write it. Just reading it. So verse 8 says, "Don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as father, for only God in heaven is your father. And don't let anyone call you teacher, for you have only one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others enter either. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are." And let me pause and say, we always take this twice the child of hell thing to mean that the hypocrites cause their converts to become hypocrites and to become twice the hypocrite as them. And while this is true in a lot of cases, there's also another side to this, because sometimes the convert becomes twice the child of hell because they end up twice as broken as the person who converted them. So then the person who converted them moves on and they heal, but it takes the convert twice as long because they're twice as broken, and then they're blamed for taking too long to heal. Verse 16 says, blind guides. And I'm going to stop again because this is very problematic to me for many reasons. In order to guide someone, you have to have awareness. You have to be aware of where you are. You have to be aware of where the person is. You have to be aware of where the person desires to go. And you have to be aware of whether or not you are equipped to guide them into where they desire to be. And you also have to decide if you want to be responsible for them reaching their destination. And if you do, what level of responsibility are you willing to take on? I don't ever want to be a blind guide, and that's one of the reasons I'm afraid to be great. So let's get back to the scripture. The scripture says, what sorrow awaits you? For you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools, which one is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say that to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding. How blind! For which is more important, the gift on the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacred? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and by everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you're swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on the throne. In other words, quit trying to cherry pick things to make people believe that the cherry you picked is better than the whole tree. And so verse 23 says, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides, you strain your water so you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you swallow a camel. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. I don't ever want to be so caught up with the outside that I don't deal with the inside. And let me just say that self-indulgence isn't just about eating your favorite foods too much, or going out to party too much, or hanging out and not working and all of that. You can also be self-indulgent when it comes to your trauma and pain. You can be so used to having pain inflicted on you that you throw yourself into abusive relationships because abuse is all that's familiar to you. And remember, there is perceived safety in familiarity. It makes you feel safe even if it's killing you. Verse 26 says, you blind Pharisees, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Dead people's bones. Outwardly, you look like religious people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you build tombs for the prophets your ancestors killed, and you decorate the monuments of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. Then you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would never have joined them in killing the prophets. But in saying that, you testify against yourselves that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started. Snakes, sons of vipers, how will you escape the judgment of hell? I'm going to pause. It's amazing how bad theology that started a long time ago was used to kill us. And now that we know better, or at least we should know better, that same bad theology is what we use to kill each other. And so the insides of our churches, if you're a church person, are full of dead people's bones. And we think it's because no flesh can glory in the presence of God, but it's really because our churches have become living, breathing graveyards full of dead people's bones. Bones of potential, bones of unhealed trauma, bones of broken dreams. Verse 34, therefore, I am sending you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law, but you will kill some by crucifixion, and you will flog others with whips in your synagogues, chasing them from city to city. As a result, you will be held responsible for the murder of all godly people of all time, from the murder of righteous Abel to the murder of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you killed in the temple between the sanctuary and the altar. I will tell you the truth. This judgment will fall on this very generation. Verse 37. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often I have wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you would not let me. And now look, your house is abandoned and desolate, for I tell you this, you will never see me again until you say blessings on the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Being great means being a servant, and it also means being responsible. It means being placed in a position where what you do can have an adverse effect on people just because of the position you hold in their lives. And so many people who have stepped into their greatness fail to take this into consideration. And it'll take some people years or even the rest of their lives to recover from something you thought your simple apology fixed. Now, when you're average, you don't have that responsibility. Your influence is low because you're pretty much right on the level with everything going on around you. You're not low enough for it to defeat you, but you're not high enough to defeat it. And so you and it just peacefully coexist. And that's not a judgment. The average is just the middle ground between all the highs and all the lows. But you can't lead from average. So when you step into greatness, you set yourself up to be crucified by the very people you were sent to help. And you set yourself up to be ostracized by the very people who should be undergirding you as you do your work. And you go to your own, and your own receive you not. And that is when the loneliness sets in. When you step into greatness, you step into a position that causes you to become someone that people look up to. And now you have to guard your influence, not just from outsiders, but from what may still be going on inside of you. And you have to work on yourself every day so that you don't misuse your influence and potentially damage people for life. And honestly, none of that is what scares me. What scares me is that I am in trauma therapy today because of things I experienced at the hands of people who were great, but aren't always willing to face their shadows. Now, we like to talk about how when we experience Christ, we are brought out of darkness into the marvelous light. And we are. But what makes the light so marvelous is the fact that it shows us where we still have darkness within. The light shows us where our past is infecting our present and killing our future. But if we use our greatness to deflect that light away from us and towards the people we're supposed to serve, we never give ourselves the opportunity to be the light that we were brought into. We would rather shine the light than be the light. And the Bible never said shine your light on others. It said let your light so shine. Permit it to shine so that others will see your good works and glorify your God, which is in heaven. But how can your works ever really be good if you don't work on you? So I'm always afraid that I will become what I worked so hard to heal from. And that's what really stops me from stepping into my greatness. I don't want to be the person. I don't want to be the person who causes pain and harm to other people because of my own issues, because of my own insecurities, because of my own unhealed trauma. The fear that I haven't done enough work not to be twice the child of hell. That's what stops me. The fear that somewhere deep inside of me is an unresolved issue that's going to just manifest and potentially cause someone else a lifetime of pain, like it potentially caused me. Because honestly, there are some things that have happened that have changed me in a way that I can't really change back from. And I never want to do that to anybody else because of my own stuff that I'm not willing to do with, stuff that I would rather cover up with, oh, I do this, and oh, I do this, and oh, I have this group, and I have this class that I teach, and I do this, and I do that. I never want to cover up my crap with ministry, with good deeds, with I fed the hungry, with I donated to the food drive. And so the only way that I know how to address this fear is to become transparent and to trust the work that I'm doing on myself, in myself, within myself, with myself. Because what transforms a person is not repeating after the preacher. What transforms a person is the renewing of their mind. And so I looked up the word renewing, and it means resuming an activity after an interruption, which means that even though things may have interrupted my journey, I don't need to just go in another direction. I need to resume what I was doing before the interruption. And this is what hinders progress. We forget that we had a life before the interruption. And we go and try to create something new to take our mind off of what happened, when often our peace and our joy and even our provision is in what we were doing before the interruption. I have a notebook full of things that I was doing before certain things happened. And I'm out here trying to do all this new stuff that's not working because the original plan did not change because it was interrupted. And so I need to go back to doing what I was doing because that's where everything I need is connected to. It's connected to what I was originally, the original plan for me and my life. And so renewing also means reestablishing a relationship. And sometimes we are so quick to reestablish our relationship with God and move on that we forget that we also have to reestablish our relationship with ourselves. Self-love is the best love, and if I'm commanded to love my neighbor as myself, then this means I should love myself first. Don't let bad theology get your order wrong. Love yourself first. And so the next definition is repeating an action or statement. It's showing up for yourself over and over and over again. It's affirming yourself. It's making sure that your mind is sharp by doing the things you need to do to keep it sharp over and over and over again. Being afraid of your greatness isn't an excuse to be mediocre. It's an affirmation of the fact that deep down inside, you recognize your power. You recognize your potential. And I don't know that I'll ever not be afraid. I don't run from the fear, though. I transmute the fear into fuel. I take the fear of the next level and I change its nature and its structure, and I create it to be fuel. I use it to be fuel to push me and to propel me into where I'm supposed to be. And then I go higher. And then I get afraid on another level. And do you know what makes me hate my life? It's when I start trying to be comfortable and common with a level that I'm no longer supposed to be on. But we'll talk about that in class. Today, I'm putting myself in a position to walk into my next level of greatness. And I encourage you to do the same. And that's that on that. So listen, I mentioned my I Love God, but I Hate My Life masterclass. And it's going down on Thursday, May 28th at 8 o'clock p.m. Thursday, May 28th at 8 o'clock p.m. It's going to be amazing. So if you want to register for it, go to my website, NicoleWatson.com, NakoleWatson.com, and click on Masterclass, and you'll be able to register. I hope to see you there. All right, people, we are out of here. Thank you so much for listening today. Have an amazing day, and remember that you are beautiful and brilliant. You are here on purpose and for a purpose, and don't let anyone tell you anything different. Catch you next time.